Awesome. Well, it's just about 2 p.m., so I think we can jump in and get started. Thank you everyone for joining so far. We're going to get started with how to create a fundraising plan for 2020. This class is class 1, so we're going to be really exploring what it looks like to lay the groundwork for your fundraising plan today and diving into all of that in just a few minutes. Before moving on, I want to introduce myself. My name is Candace, and I'm the Manager of Success and Education here at CauseVox. And Rob is here as well.
And my name is Rob Wu. I'm the CEO and founder at CauseVox. So I started this company 10 years ago. I've been helping thousands of nonprofits with fundraising. So really excited to share with you some insights into how you can craft a fundraising plan for 2020.
Awesome, thanks. So we're gonna just dive into a little bit more about CauseVox as well. So we're a digital fundraising platform for nonprofits and social good projects where you can really unclunk your fundraising. So a lot of fundraising software out there is very clunky, it's complicated, it's a lot of contracts that you're bound to. But CauseVox actually helps streamline your fundraising and tidy it up so it makes it easier for you to raise more with less effort. So you can run your donation pages, crowdfunding, peer-to-peer fundraising in less time with less hassle on CauseVox. So a little bit more about our fundraising planning course to give you a brief overview. So today, class 1 is laying the groundwork for your fundraising plan. I'll get into what that's going to look like for us today. Class 2 is January 14th, so on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. So that's where we're also going to be crafting that fundraising plan and walking through those steps. And class 3 is individually scheduled. You get a one-on-one coaching session with myself. So we'll give you the details on how you can schedule that after class number 2. And then we can spend some time reviewing your fundraising plan so far and either optimizing those plans, or hopefully I can help you spot some blind spots so that you can find new fundraising opportunities for your organization. So in addition to just the course, you're going to be receiving access to all of these slides, so you can always look at them later, and also recordings of class 1 and class 2, so you can review it, share with your team, and refer to that later on. So next up, you're going to have that one-on-one consultation. You're also going to be receiving a written fundraising plan resource guide that's in the form of a PDF ebook. You also will be receiving the Smart Fundraising Goals worksheet template, which is downloadable, as well as the fundraising calendar template, which is also downloadable, and you'll actually be downloading those today. So without further ado, let's dive into the meat of our fundraising planning course for today. So when we're laying the groundwork for fundraising planning, there's 4 components that we're going to be looking at. The first is just a brief intro to fundraising planning, so we're all on the same page on what a fundraising plan is and why it's important. Number 2 is looking at digital fundraising methodology, really exploring digital fundraising and what that means for your plans for 2020. Next, we're going to be reviewing last year's fundraising. So looking through how to review your 2019 fundraising so you can glean all of the insights that help you build your 2020 fundraising plan. And last up is budgeting for 2020 and looking at how to set great goals that help you drive fundraising growth. So one of my favorite quotes is that if you don't know where you're going, you will end up someplace else. This is a quote by Yogi Berra. And I think it's really telling to why fundraising planning is so important, because if you're just going step by step, a little blindly into fundraising, you're likely not going to end up where you want to be. But with a fundraising plan, you're set to knock it out of the park. So fundraising, baseball puns there. So first up, we're going to be doing a brief intro to fundraising planning. So just before diving into everything else, what is a fundraising plan? So a fundraising plan is a document that organizes all of your fundraising activities, over a certain period of time, usually 1 year. So what we're going to be building out over the course of this course is that 1 year fundraising plan for all of 2020. And these strategic plans generally include campaign dates and strategies, donor tracking plans, special event details, and a targeted communication schedule. So basically, you're just going to be mapping out each step of fundraising for the whole year and having all that all in one document, so it's really easily digestible and for you to come back and refer to all year long. It gives you a great foundation to help you really track and manage your fundraising all year. So it's designed to help you keep focused and on task throughout the year. So when you don't have a fundraising plan, it can cause a lot of problems. So one of the things that I see in a lot of fundraising, and even when I'm talking with some of our customers, is that there's this constant focus on urgent fundraising. So you're always looking at the immediate because you have all these tasks and all these things that you need to accomplish for fundraising. So you can only spend your time focusing on what's coming up next instead of looking at your long-term goals and strategies. So that ultimately affects your long-term planning as well, because you're so focused on the now. And then there's also a lack of predictable fundraising revenue. So one of the things we talk about with fundraising plans is how to set great goals that help you drive growth in a predictable way with measurable outcomes. So without a fundraising plan, you're just going to have a lack of predictable fundraising revenue where you might do an event that you are hoping will bring in a certain amount, but you have no idea either what that amount is going to be, what success looks like, etc. And then there's also a lot of stress and confusion around what fundraising strategies are actually the most effective for your organization. So part of looking back at what you did in 2019 is really distilling out which strategies had the highest return on effort and raised the most, so that you know which strategies you can continue to develop in 2020 and lean into more. So without a fundraising plan, there's a lot of stress and confusion around what your fundraising actually looks like and how that was successful. So all of these things really impact your long-term fundraising growth. And so when you do have a fundraising plan, you're going to see a lot of benefits. So you're going to have a strategic plan in place that helps you optimize your fundraising year round. So basically, you're going to be able to iterate on your fundraising and make adjustments so that you're consistently meeting those goals. You're going to be able to identify and expand on fundraising initiatives that drive the most revenue. So be able to actually spot what is working for your organization. And also have predictable and measurable outcomes so that you can best track and grow your fundraising. So looking at, really what's driving the most growth and being able to predict exactly how much that is actually going to look like for you.
Yeah, another advantage with having a fundraising plan, where I see a lot when I meet with folks at nonprofits, is that with fundraising teams, it's not just yourself. It's you have your marketing person, you have your boss, your ED, your board. So your fundraising plan helps relay what steps need to be taken in order to accomplish the goals, helps you get on the same page with your other team members too.
Yeah, that's a huge one. Thanks for that. So now that we're looking at our fundraising planning course, I want to make it really clear about what exactly you're going to get out of this. So you're going to have a completed fundraising planning calendar to drive predictable and measurable fundraising success. You're also going to have a completed SMART fundraising goal worksheet so that you can identify your specific goals and tackle potential obstacles. And then number 3, have that one-on-one coaching session so that I can review your plan with you one-on-one, and we can even walk through any questions that you still have and make sure that your plan is as effective as it possibly could be. So before going any further, I want to take a look at your templates that you're going to be working through today. We're going to get through both of these templates and really detail out how you can fill this out. But I just want to brief you on what each of these templates look like. This is the fundraising calendar. I think Rob just posted the URL for the shared calendar template. You can download these in the Google spreadsheet. And so really the fundraising calendar is mapping out your fundraising activities through Q1, so January through March, Q2 through Q4, and detailing out those fundraising activities and ultimately taking a look at what your predicted income is going to look like. This is also going to be the same template we use to review your 2019 fundraising. So this will come a lot into play a little bit later on. So we're also going to be looking at your 2020 SMART fundraising goals. So this template, also available in the same link that Rob just posted in. It's really about your fundraising strategies and building out what exactly those goals are and how exactly you plan to accomplish them. And so this is mapping out specific strategies, some obstacles that you currently have so that you can talk to your board or whoever you need to talk to about overcoming those obstacles ahead of time. And also going over your targets and specific goals basically for each of your focus areas. So your action item is to download your fundraising planning calendar and SMART goals templates. And we will include this link in the summary email as well, so you can do it later if you don't want to do it right now.
All right, so with our next section is around digital fundraising. So you might be thinking, well, I'm here to create a fundraising plan that's really comprehensive. One of the things we want to touch on really quickly is some of the trends of fundraising itself. So we've seen a huge growth in digital fundraising. You know, over the past 2 years, there's been a 24% growth in online donations. So what this means is that if you're just thinking about fundraising in 2020 without an online component, then there's a huge piece of the pie that you might be missing in terms of gifts that you get throughout the year to fund your projects. The only big part is that in 2018, mobile giving, so that's giving through a mobile phone, through a mobile browser, through an iPhone or Android phone, has increased by 205%. So there's a huge growth in how people are donating, where you see a shift where it's not just about offline gifts or even website gifts from a desktop, but it's really about mobile giving, giving on the go, giving through mobile browsers, giving through Apple Pay and Google Pay, and that's where donors want to be. Because of that, digital fundraising isn't the future of fundraising, it's actually happening today in 2019 and 2020 and 2021. So there's a huge acceleration of how people are shifting their giving preferences. So because of that, it's really important to think about how you integrate digital fundraising into your 2020 fundraising plans. Now, when we take a look at how fundraising is actually done today and yesterday, you know, the current state is really is what we see a start and stop. So the big problem with how fundraising process is done at a lot of organizations is that they treat fundraising as a project, where similar to how it's carried over from kind of traditional fundraising of major gifts and grant applications, where organizations think that fundraising is just about a project that you do, for example, for a gala. Or another problem that we see with the traditional fundraising is that there are long cycle times, where a lot of times we think about fundraising as something that we do once a year, and then we don't have the insights and data to really iterate and improve on step by step. So a lot of times there's no repeatable process, it's treated as an afterthought. Well, the solution for this to think about is how you can actually create a digital fundraising cycle. So you get more data quickly, as well as you get more feedback from your donors. They can learn and repeat and grow them. So at CauseVox, we have this methodology, it's super simple 3 steps, where the first part of the digital fundraising methodology for your fundraising plan is about how you can attract folks. So this is where you build your audience, where you get more web traffic, you get more social followers, how you can make yourself known. Really, it's kind of like a marketing function. From there, after you are known, is how you can nurture these folks, how you can engage your audience through stories that you post online, or how you can send emails to them to increase their engagement with you, increase their open rates, for example. And the very last step is how you convert these folks into actual donors for a recurring gift campaign or for peer-to-peer fundraising. So one of the things is really important is just think about how you can have a 3-step process for your online fundraising to take folks from step 1, attract, to step 2, which is nurture, and a step 3 into each one of these 3 phases, which gives you a better idea of how you can push folks through the process. There's a few things that you can do in order to track this, just to keep in mind. One is that during this attraction phase, you can look at the number of social media posts being posted, number of traffic you're getting. For the nurture phase, you can think about open rates, for example. And then for the last conversion phase, you can think about number of donations that you're getting. So certain metrics, certain things you can do. The idea is that what you want to do is make sure that these 3 steps is easy for you to measure, as well as easy for you to repeat very quickly. So more than just once a year, every single month, so that you can actually build a fundraising engine that allows you to grow your fundraising. So think about fundraising not as just something you just need to do. It's really about committing to your donors, about nurturing them. This little short film from Pixar, which I really love, from the beginning of Up, I believe, is this short montage of how there's this husband and wife, kind of how they got together, and then basically the journey of their life in just about 5 or 10 minutes. So similar thing is that with your donor, it's really about the journey. It's not just about saying, hey, we need money today, or we need money in March. Let me just ask you for a donation. It's really about nurturing them, attracting folks, and then making the ask.
So when we talk about digital fundraising and thinking about how that applies to your 2020 fundraising planning, I wanted to go over some broad trends that we've been seeing when it comes to digital fundraising, so you can think about how you can incorporate these into your fundraising planning. So let me go forward. And so overall, nonprofit digital ad budgets have increased 144% in 2018. This is only continuing to grow. So this shows an overall trend where more and more nonprofits are looking into digital advertising as a way to attract more donors and interested parties to your organization. So this is one example of a great way to attract new donors. So you definitely have your earned media. So this is by having content generation and creating that audience for yourself. But then there's also the opportunity for you to use paid media, so Facebook ads, so you can increase your reach with either warm audiences. So this is going to be the people that are already engaging with your nonprofit on social media, and making sure, boosting those posts so that those people that are already engaged continue to be engaged, and they actually see your posts and have the opportunity to be brought in to your organization. And there's also lookalike audiences. So this is similar causes that already have audiences built up that you can promote to. So if a donor likes one nonprofit and you are a similar cause, they're probably going to like your nonprofit too. So that's a great way to attract new interested people in your organization that you can then nurture. And similarly with Google Ads, you can really increase your nonprofit's visibility. One of the ways to do this is with the Google Ad Grant. It's up to $10,000 a month in free advertising for nonprofits. If you haven't already taken advantage of it, I really encourage you to do so. We have other content, webinars about how to actually gain this and implement it. So feel free to reach out to us if you're interested in accessing that content, and we can send that along to you. Another trend that we've been seeing is that 65% plus of all fundraising web traffic is mobile and is growing each year. So this is actually something we see on CauseVox itself, over our thousands of customers. So this is definitely something that you want to lean more into in 2020. Also, 54% of consumers have used a mobile wallet to make a payment. That's from PaySafe. So basically, to convert more of your donors, you're going to want to have that mobile optimization. So make sure that your website, your donation pages, any campaigns that you run, everything that you should do should be mobile optimized so that you can ensure your donors can really easily donate on any device that they want. So that makes your donors happy, makes it easy. So you're going to see increased conversion rates on that. Similarly, mobile payments are really taking off. They're growing in leaps and bounds. So you're going to want to increase your conversion rates by giving donors the mobile payment options so that they can give it in one click. Otherwise, they're on their phone, they're trying to make a donation. Oh, they have to find their credit card, dig it out in their purse, or just adds that extra level of friction where the mobile payments, everything's already saved, they can donate in one simple click. So that's going to be something that you'll want to think about in 2020. Also in 2018, the average recurring donor contributed 42% more than one-time donors. So when you're thinking about your digital fundraising strategy and converting more donors, you're going to want to make sure that you have a donation form that has recurring giving options, maybe even optimizing it so recurring giving is placed first, so you drive more recurring donors. And also maybe run targeted recurring campaigns to convert previous donors, previous one-time donors, or even donors over the years if they give annually, and having those convert to monthly recurring donors. And that's going to really help you raise more in a sustainable way, so you have that predictable income coming in every month. Also, we see that organizations that use peer-to-peer fundraising tend to raise twice as much more than other online fundraising campaigns. So this is a huge opportunity for so many nonprofits where you can run a peer-to-peer fundraising campaign and really double the size and reach of your campaign. This brings in a lot of new donors, so it also helps you acquire donors and convert them at the same time. So this helps you really, expand your reach. And some options for peer-to-peer fundraising is just run a standard peer-to-peer campaign. So targeting current volunteers, repeat donors, board members, or anyone else that you can think of to raise funds on your behalf. And so those are likely people that you've already nurtured and that are already in your audience. And then you also have the opportunity to include peer-to-peer in existing fundraising campaigns. So maybe you do an annual campaign every year. Think about adding peer-to-peer on top of that. So all of a sudden you have the opportunity to raise twice as much with that pre-existing campaign. So you can really actually build peer-to-peer into a lot of the things that you're already doing. And lastly, something that I've also seen trending is DIY peer-to-peer. So think of birthday campaigns, personal challenges. All of these are good examples of ways that you can give your community the opportunity to fundraise for you anytime and give them control over, whether it's their birthday or personal challenge. They can pick the date range and pick their own fundraising goals and raise funds for you anytime, so you're not just limiting people to a specific campaign to raise funds for you. Just overall, what we've been seeing is that there's an increase in organizations incorporating digital fundraising into their in-person or their offline events. So this is a great opportunity. I chat with so many of our customers, and so a lot of people are giving ways to contribute on their mobile device at their fundraising event itself. But also part of this is incorporating digital fundraising into your events overall. So maybe fundraising online leading up to that event, giving you more time to raise funds ahead of time, also giving you more predictable income. You can also consider live streaming events on social media, so that you have that wider audience that you're also raising funds from. And so displaying links to your digital fundraising sites at the event, so you're consistently driving more online donations as well as in-person donations. So the action item for you is to map out what you're actually currently doing to attract, nurture, and convert your donors. So this will help you see how you're already implementing the digital fundraising strategy. And then also consider which digital fundraising strategies you want to explore in 2020 based on these fundraising trends. So without further ado, let's dive into your 2019 fundraising and really look into how you can effectively analyze your results. So this is going to be using the fundraising calendar template. Again, it looks like this. The link is right there if you want to download it and take a look for yourself. So we're going to really dive into how to map out your fundraising. So actually, in the fundraising calendar itself, you're going to be mapping out all your fundraising activities. So really think through the ways that you actually raised funds last year. You know, considering your donation page, recurring giving, just email fundraising in general, any events that you were doing, so races, galas, bowl-a-thons, anything that you can think of when it comes to both online and offline giving, and mapping out all of that in that fundraising calendar template. So you have a good overview of how each of your fundraising initiatives performed. So once you have all of those listed out, you're going to put those in your fundraising calendar template, organize them into quarters, so Q1 through Q4. And if you're doing things like, say, like your donation page, I would put that in every section as well. So consider the things that you do year round to drive donations. So once that is already listed in your fundraising calendar, the next thing that you want to do is really calculate your return on investment. So the whole next section, costs, staff hours, estimated income, estimated cost, net outcome. So all of these things help you calculate the ROI. So we're really going to be looking at only a few of these columns for reviewing last year. So with each of your fundraising activities, there's always cost to everything. So maybe that's even just your email newsletter platform, what you pay for that each month, or going through more of your events, your materials, event spaces, food, postage if you did mailings, really all of the fees, everything that adds up, including staff time. So consider how much staff time is devoted to each fundraising initiative that you do, and try and add that approximately in dollars to each section. So that's going to give you a good idea of what your costs really are when it comes to fundraising. So once you total up your income generated, you're next going to want to, first for calculating return on investment, you're going to want to total up your income generated, so everything that you raise for each fundraising activity. Next, when you have all of that cost calculated, you're just going to consider the income minus the cost to get your net profit. And then from there, that's going to make it really easy for you to calculate your return on investment. So when you divide your net profit by your costs and then multiply it by 100, that is going to give you your return on investment for each of your fundraising activities. So for example, let's say your event raised $50,000 for your organization, but the total cost ended up being $35,000. So you made $15,000 net profit. So $15,000 divided by $35,000 is 0.42. Then you're going to multiply that by 100. So that gives you a 42% return on investment. So when you have this calculated up for each of your fundraising activities, this helps you determine which fundraising activities are actually most effective, give you the highest return on your investment and also your effort, because you're, counting in staff hours and that as well. So that's super important for reviewing your fundraising and seeing which things you're going to want to tie into your plan for next year. And next, you're going to want to consider your fundraising goals. So whether or not you had specific fundraising goals assigned to these fundraising activities, I would just do your best to really think through what fundraising goals you did have, and if you, so whether that was reach, followers, maybe event attendees, number of donors, and what other goals you may have had for each fundraising activity. Now, I know sometimes you don't always have a fundraising goal in place, so just try your best and see, maybe your goal was just to increase donations, and just have that listed in that plan, just so you have a way to see how each activity measured up to your expectations. So once you have detailed that out in your fundraising calendar, you're going to want to evaluate your outcomes. So just on a high level, total raise, did what you raised last year actually cover your full budget? And also assessing if what you raised was more or less than you expected, and if so, how much? Because that will give you a really clear idea of where that places you this year, and maybe how much you need to increase your fundraising for next year. So that can help tie in to specific goals. Next is, did your fundraising activities actually align with your organizational goals? So sometimes fundraising activities, you might do them just to do them, and really thinking through what your fundraising activities are and if they tie into the overall growth of your organization, and how that ties into your ultimate mission as well. Next, when you're evaluating your outcomes, you're going to want to isolate the activities with the highest return on investment. Those are going to tell you what's most important for next year. And that gives you a really clear look at the things that you should probably even be diving more into, because you're going to be able to grow your fundraising easiest with those high ROIs activities. And then also, you're going to want to look at which fundraising activities overall you want to deprioritize and which ones you want to optimize in 2020. So when you take a look at all of this data, that's going to give you a really clear answer of what your priorities should be for 2020 with each activity. And then you can think about what other insights can you gain from this data. There might be donor trends that you can lean more into, thinking through who your donors really are and what this data actually tells them about what they like the most and how they like to donate most. So maybe you notice that, emails, for example, are particularly effective for your audience, and you can really lean more into those fundraising activities. So what's some bad news? On average, nonprofit organizations lose 60% of their donors each year. You do so much to attract these new donors and acquire them throughout the year. I don't want you to lose them. So we're going to go into what it looks like to get that second gift. So it costs nonprofit organizations 200 to 300% more to attract new donors than it does to get a second gift. So a lot of your return on investment is actually going to be nurturing those donors that came in, especially at the end of last year. I know you guys just got finished with your year-end fundraising. So how to really attract that second gift is going to be really important. So donor retention, just to give you backtrack a little bit and give you a definition to work off of, is the percent of donors that return to give another gift in a specific time period. This is usually year over year, what we're looking at. So to see how you're currently doing on donor retention and whether you measure up to the statistic of 60%, there's a few things that you can do. So you're going to want to gather your total number of donors in 2018 and 2019 and segment out your returning donors in 2019. So out of that list, who actually gave again in 2019. With this, you're going to want to divide the number of returning donors by the total number of donors from the previous year. So that is going to really give you an insight into how many donors were retained and what your retention rate looks like. For example, if 100 donors from last year returned to gifts again, out of 250 total donors, you retained 40% of your donors and lost 60%. So that goes back to that statistic earlier.
Yeah, and what you can do also is if you're able to see it annually, then I think that's one benchmark. But if you're able to calculate this more on a monthly or even a quarterly basis, then you'll get more data sooner. So for example, if you just do it annually, what happens is that these donors that you haven't talked to in about a year or haven't donated in a year, you didn't have the chance 12 months ago to really figure out why they didn't donate or how to engage them better to retain them. So if you're able to cycle through your retention a lot quicker, then you can make more informed insights to retain a donor.
Mm-hmm. And especially one thing I just heard, I think it was from Bloomerang. So if your donor just gave, you're going to want to ask them for a second gift within about 90 days because that actually leads to greater retention rates throughout the year. So yeah, just like not looking at donors just on an annual giving basis, but even within that 90-day period is super essential to re-engage. So with all of that being said, there is some good news. There are a lot of donor retention tips and strategies out there to help you really engage your donors. So just off the bat, sending donors a receipt and thank you email immediately following their donation is going to be really essential. Actually, they're 400% more likely to give again if they receive a receipt within 48 hours. So just having that handy, having that automated is going to help you a lot. It's also going to save your donors so that they give again soon. Next is creating a welcome email series for new donors. If any of you guys are currently doing that, we would love to hear from you. But for those of you that aren't, a welcome email series is typically about like 5 emails or so that really welcome each new donor to your nonprofit. You can use stories to really engage their hearts and their minds and also encourage that second gift. Another example that I actually just mentioned is to ask for another donation within the first 90 days. They're typically have 2 times the lifetime value of donors that just give once before 90 days. Next, you're going to want to invest in building up your recurring giving. So this is something we also mentioned earlier. So recurring donors actually have a 90% retention rate as opposed to the 40% retention rate that I mentioned earlier. So your recurring donors are going to be around for a lot longer and you're going to raise a lot more from them, as well as just develop that relationship on a closer scale so that you're able to continually nurture them and keep them in the long run. Another tip is to segment and nurture your donors who give higher amounts. So a study found that donors that gave more than $250 have a 76% retention rate year over year. So try and segment out those higher donors. Maybe have a separate email list for them. You're going to want to send more emails, maybe give them a couple more phone calls, and treat them a little bit differently than your other donors because they're likely going to stick around longer, and the more you nurture them, they certainly will. And also consider using donor surveys to gain insight from your supporters. So after someone makes a donation, every once in a while, you might want to send them a survey to see why did they contribute to the organization? Was it a tribute gift in honor or in memory of someone, or was it through like peer-to-peer, for example? So just really gaining those insights into what inspired them to give in the first place so that you can lean more into that. And also learn how your donors like to be contacted is also super effective, because if you know someone prefers social media over emails, then you can kind of put them in that group and engage with them that way. So action item for you is to calculate your donor retention rate for those insights, and definitely if you can distill it down to even quarterly or monthly, that's going to give you some great insights as well. And then you're going to want to set a retention goal for 2020. So it's really important part of your fundraising strategy.
Yep, again, this is important from a donor retention. Donor retention is more just because it's easier for you to get donations and grow donations from donors that you already have versus always acquiring new donors. So really important just to have a donor retention goal.
Awesome. So without further ado, let's dive into actually creating your 2020 goals and your budget. So this is going to be in the Smart Fundraising Goals template. So we're going to be walking through how to fill this out. So it's essential that your fundraising activities align with your fundraising goals. So if you're, for example, diving into retention heavily, you're going to want those fundraising activities to help drive retention. So making sure your goals and fundraising strategies are in perfect alignment, so it helps you basically make fundraising easier and drive further growth. So there's 3 fundraising growth strategies. The first 2 are probably the things that you're going to want to lean into more. So acquiring more donors, always a good thing. Definitely acquisition is important to keep new donors coming in. There's also increasing donor retention, which we just went over is a huge part of actually raising more in the long run and keeping those donors that you already worked so hard to achieve. And then the last is increasing gift size. So thinking through what your average gift size is, maybe trying to increase that with a few methods, perhaps asking donors that gave maybe $25 last year, maybe asking them to give $50 this year, and driving growth that way. So first up for filling out the Smart Fundraising Goals sheet is really setting your macro goals. So before you dive into strategy, before you do anything else, really coming down to how much you need to raise this year and what your overall strategy will look like. And you'll get into more detailed options, but are you mostly looking at retention, or are you mostly looking at acquisition? Maybe both, but listing that out as your strategy focus. To help you really come up with that budget of what you're actually looking to raise, you can calculate this in a pretty straightforward manner, where you want to add up how much you expect to spend on all of your expenses, administrative costs, programming, all your fundraising, what it takes for your organization to run this year. Next, you're going to want to really look at how much you're expecting to bring in from guaranteed committed sources. So this could look like different grants that you've already applied to. This could also be commitments that have already been made from some of your major donors or your board. Just anything that you know for a fact is coming in. So then you can factor that into how much you actually need to raise from your individual donor base. So then you're gonna just subtract your guaranteed income from your total expenses to find out how much you really need to raise this year and how that compares to what you raised last year. So that's very specific. You'll get probably a specific number or percent more that you're looking to grow your fundraising by. So when you have that specific goal in mind for how much you're looking to grow your fundraising, next up, you're going to want to start detailing out some smaller goals that will help you achieve that overall fundraising goal for this year. And so some of the ways that you can think about this to make it easy for you to track and manage is having these SMART fundraising goals set up. So something that's very specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time bound. So we'll go into a bunch of examples of what this actually looks like, but it's making your goal as finite as it possibly could be so that you're able to refer back to that and see how you're performing over the course of the year. So next you're going to be setting your micro goal. So you already set your macro goal, how much you need to raise more this year than last year. So to help you achieve that, you're going to set your micro goals. So you can group this by donor acquisition, donor retention strategies, or increasing gift size. So for the header, you're definitely going to want to have strategies that line up with each of those. And then you're going to want to list out your specific focus areas. So, so for donor retention, you might want to list out a new welcome email series would be a great example of a specific strategy. So a goal here for the micro goals is to just acquire 5% more new donors. So 3 strategies to do that is to organize 1 major fundraiser per quarter and 1 small fundraiser per month. Plan a peer-to-peer fundraising campaign to acquire more new donors, and also use Facebook and Instagram ads to drive a targeted audience to your fundraising website. So that's all on the acquisition side. Another example here is to increase the average gift size by 3% and detailing out how exactly you can do that. So create giving levels that drive up donation amounts and incorporate that across all of your online fundraising. Maybe ask returning donors to increase gifts, especially like major donors as well. And then, maybe target one-time donors for a recurring giving campaign to drive that up. Typically 42% recurring donors give more than one-time donors. So that's just a couple examples. You're going to want to set your own, and then when you have those strategies in place, think through what obstacles you might encounter. So for example, you want to really drive more donations through your website. That's one of your fundraising strategies. But you have a clunky donation form and donation page. And so you're worried that that's going to hinder conversion rates. So one of the things that you want to list out as an obstacle to overcome is that clunky donation form and page. And then you can then face that head on throughout the year. So you can go over that with your team. It's great for communicating with your board and your staff overall about what is hindering you and what needs to be done so that you can actually accomplish your goals. And lastly, you're going to want to set for each strategy specific targets based on those SMART principles that we just went over that you aim to reach. So maybe with that better donation page, you want to increase donor conversion rates on your donation page by 30%. Or maybe you just want to acquire 200 new donors. So having very specific targets is going to help you measure how you're doing, and maybe those targets need to be edited throughout the year. So this is a living document. You're going to be coming back to this all the time. So let's say you already acquire 200 donors within a shorter period than you thought. Then that's great for revision. You can up that amount. So wanted to also detail out these micro goal examples. These are going to be great for you to also return to later as you think through what your micro goals are. But I just listed some examples here of, increasing donor acquisition, what those obstacles might look like for you, and also some targets. So these are just great for you to really think through what this can look like at your organization. So I'll let everyone take a look at this for a second, and then I will move on momentarily. All right, so back to our fundraising goals worksheet. When you have it filled out, it'll look something like this. And so by the end of this course, you'll have your very own customized fundraising goals worksheet completely filled out, ready to tackle in 2020. So that's really where we're going with this. So for action items for you is to create your budget and then detail out those macro and micro fundraising goals. So that brings us to the end of our time today. So we're going to be sending out all of this to you so you can refer back to it later. Before we wrap up, just again, a little bit more about CauseVox. We're a digital fundraising platform that helps you raise more with less effort, with really clunk-free, easy-to-use tech that helps you tidy up your fundraising and raise more with less effort. So you can run your donation pages, crowdfunding, peer-to-peer, really any digital fundraising that you can think of on CauseVox. So now's a great time for, if you have any questions that you want us to tackle, please feel free to chat those in. You can use the chat box or the Q&A. We actually have a few minutes to tackle those questions set aside now. So again, just to go over what we went through today is really just the intro to fundraising planning, a little bit more about digital fundraising and how you can incorporate that into your 2020 planning, how to review your 2019 fundraising and budgeting for 2020, and how to set those goals. Next week on January 14th, on Tuesday, we're going to be crafting your fundraising plan. So creating your fundraising resources list, assessing what you have at your disposal to work with in 2020, finalizing your 2020 fundraising strategies, and crafting your actionable fundraising plan so you are all set to raise funds next year and grow your fundraising in a measurable and predictable way. Lastly, you will have that one-on-one fundraising planning session to review your fundraising plan, and we'll go over that. That's scheduled at your convenience. So we'll send out more details about scheduling that time with me, and we're going to tackle questions now.
Yep, just to reiterate, the next class is on Tuesday, January 14th at 2 p.m. Eastern. What you want to do before the class, if you can, is to go into the template and calendar that's provided at the Google Doc link, make a copy for yourself, and begin to kind of fill out as a straw man, like a skeleton of some of the things you did in 2019, the costs, the net income, the goals. So begin to do that, and also begin to figure out what kind of goals in terms of funding you have so that we can continue on with class number 2. We have a few questions that have come in. Let me see. So a question from Philip is asking if CauseVox connects directly to his website. So yes, if you wanted to use CauseVox for your 2020 fundraising, digital fundraising, you can use CauseVox for an embeddable donation page that sits on your website, either as a pop-up or as a form, or you can use CauseVox for a crowdfunding campaign or peer-to-peer. We give you a template for that, and then you can make it look like and feel like your website through branding, and even have it sit on your own website's URL too. So a couple of different options there. We have another question related to this is, let me see. So yes, we have a question about if you can put a button on your website which takes visitors to a form. So yes, you can use CauseVox for that as well as you can use CauseVox for peer-to-peer fundraising.
Mm-hmm. And I actually just pasted a link in there if you want to check out an example of a live embedded donation page from one of our customers.
We have a question from Missy about if there's some real life stories from nonprofit hospitals and foundations. Candice, do we have like a case study or customer story from a hospital too?
You know what? I'll dig something up. We have a couple of, we have a nursing, oncology nursing foundation. I don't know if we have a customer story, but I can send you some examples of what they're doing for fundraising. And we also have a couple other customers that I can think of. So I'd be happy to send some more information along and some examples so you can check that out. And there's just a question about if CauseVox is a subscription service or fee. So we can go into that if you'd like.
Sure. CauseVox, we have different pricing and tiers. We have a basic plan that's free, so there's no subscription fee, no CauseVox platform fee. So we basically operate based on tips from your donors. So if they want to tip us, they can. If they don't want to, then they don't have to. But basically, you can use CauseVox for free. Some of our other plans do have a monthly fee or annual fee, depending on the plan that you want to opt into. And you can actually look at that when you go to causevox.com/pricing. So feel free to take a look at that.
And I'll paste that in there in case anyone's interested on taking a look.
Yep. We have someone asking about the link Candice you shared about the Steeply Cancer for peer-to-peer fundraising for their fundraising plan. What is the rough pricing to use something like that? So
yeah. So I believe they're on our standard plan. And I can show you what that looks like live if you want to take a look, or you can do peer-to-peer donation pages, everything on the standard plan, and have a lot of advantages. You also get a dedicated success manager to help you implement all of this. So there's monthly there's month-to-month pricing, so there's no long-term commitment, or there's annual pricing and you can save a bit. So what you're looking at for donation pages, so just taking simple donations on your website, is just a 2% CauseVox transaction fee. And then for peer-to-peer campaigns, that's going to be 4.25% for the platform fee.
yep, and then under the standard plan, there's a way for donors to cover that platform fee for you. So most donors opt into it. So you're actually running CauseVox almost fee-free. We do have plans that have lower platform fees as well with a higher monthly fee. So that's possible too, depending on what size organization you are. This is a great question just because, you know, as you're filling out the fundraising plan for 2020, you want to look at how much money you want to raise versus the cost of it. So this is a great way to budget some of the costs.
Yeah. And we're actually running our annual sale. So you'll get an additional 20% off if you're interested. So please feel free to contact us. We'd be happy to give you more information and help you get set up. So any questions in between, please feel free to email us at support@causevox.com. And we'll get to helping you right away. So just pasted that link in there as well. And we'll include all of this information in the email that goes out. So if there's no more questions, we'll leave it open for just another minute in case you have any burning questions. And we can get to those, and then we'll end our time today in just a minute or two here. And I think I saw Eliza ask if you can actually run DIY peer-to-peer with CauseVox. So basically have a button on your website that takes your visitors to where they can sign up for a personal fundraising page if they want to donate their birthday or donate a challenge. You're definitely able to do that. I can send you some great examples of that if you're interested. I know you already work with us, so you know, we can always set up a time to chat about how you can implement that.
Okay, well, I think that's about time. So thanks so much, everybody, today, just for your time with class number 1. We will be continuing with class number 2 on next week on Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern, January 14th. We'll send a reminder out in the summary email, which will include a recording and the slides from today.
Thanks everyone for joining. Have a good rest of your day. Talk to you on Tuesday.